Just pick one. Latte or cold brew? The latte is comforting, but the cold brew has more caffeine for that meeting. But what if it makes me jittery? Last time I felt like I could see sound. Maybe just a regular coffee. No, that's so boring. Does that sound familiar? A constant running narration inside your head, debating every tiny decision as it happens? A voice that plans, rehearses, and critiques your life second by second? This commentator is the most dedicated employee you've never hired. It works 24/7, no holidays, offering unsolicited advice on your parallel parking and replaying that awkward thing you said in 2014. It's your personal director, critic, and worry consultant, all rolled into one, providing a live, anxious play-by-play of your own life. It can feel relentless. But here's the truly wild part. What if I told you that for some people, that commentary booth is completely empty? That isn't just a thought experiment. It's real. For a large number of people, their inner world is essentially silent. And if that idea just short-circuited your brain, you're not alone. This isn't a flaw. It's not about one way being right and the other wrong. It's about discovering that human consciousness has fundamentally different architectures. And once you see the blueprint for your own mind, you can finally stop trying to fix a machine that was never broken. This isn't some niche psychological theory. A few years ago, this very idea went viral, creating a collective aha moment across the internet as thousands of people realized their internal world wasn't a universal human experience. What researchers have quietly studied for decades suddenly became a deeply personal revelation for many. This variation isn't a bug, it's a feature. Think of it less as a right way versus a wrong way, and more like having different cognitive architectures. One mind might be built like a library, meticulously organized by words and sentences, while another is built like an art gallery, communicating through feeling and form. To really understand your own, we need to define the two primary blueprints. So let's give these blueprints a name. On one end of the spectrum is what we'll call the inner narrator, the mind that processes the world through structured verbal sentences. On the other end is abstract thinking, a mind that experiences thought as a flow of feelings, images, or pure concepts. And this distinction isn't just a popular idea. It's a field of serious psychological inquiry. For decades, one psychologist has been dedicated to mapping these hidden landscapes. At the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Russell Hurlburt developed a fascinating research method called descriptive experience sampling. The goal wasn't to ask people what they thought an hour ago, but to capture the exact texture of their inner experience at a specific random moment. This technique provided the first real, scientific window into these different mental architectures, and what it revealed completely changed our understanding of what it means to think. Hurlburt found that the inner narrator is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. He consistently found several distinct types of inner experience. There's visual thinking, where ideas appear as images. There's sensory awareness, a pure focus on a physical feeling, like the warmth of a cup. And most fascinatingly, unsymbolized thinking, the distinct experience of a thought that has no words or symbols attached. This diversity isn't an anomaly, it's the human norm. So for those with a narrator, what's actually happening in the brain to generate that voice? Neuroimaging scans show us that the brain's language centers, like Broca's area, light up almost identically to when we speak out loud. Your brain is running a perfect simulation of talking, crafting the sentences, hearing the words, but it simply cuts the connection before the signal reaches your mouth and vocal cords. To really grasp the different textures of these two operating systems, a simple analogy can make it all click into place. Imagine you're on a road trip. The inner narrator is like having a GPS turned on. A voice gives you clear turn-by-turn directions. In 200 feet, turn right. It's linear, precise, and verbal. You follow the steps as they're given to you. The abstract thinker is navigating with a physical map and a compass. They don't hear instructions. Instead, they see the entire landscape at once, the mountains, the rivers, the final destination. They navigate by feeling the relationships between landmarks, sensing the overall direction. Both drivers arrive at the exact same place, but the texture of their journey is fundamentally different. So if both architectures are equally effective, what does it actually feel like to live inside each one? So this isn't just about different navigation styles. It's about the very texture of your daily experience. And that inner narrator, while a helpful guide, can also be a relentless and anxious companion. Let's explore that duality more closely. For those with an inner narrator, the benefits are tangible. This voice is your built-in strategist, helping you rehearse a difficult conversation or meticulously sequence the steps for a complex project. It's a powerful tool for self-regulation and planning. But that tool is double-edged. The same voice that builds you up can also become your harshest critic, trapping you in loops of anxious rumination. It becomes a well-meaning but overbearing companion that doesn't know when to be quiet. This dual nature is well documented. Cognitive psychology has consistently shown that our inner speech is a key tool for problem-solving and achieving goals. Yet, research, like the foundational work on rumination by Susan Nolen-Hoeksema, highlights how this same mechanism can become an engine for anxiety when it gets stuck in a loop. It's a powerful but sometimes volatile internal architecture, which raises a fascinating question. How do minds that don't rely on this verbal system even navigate the world? For the abstract thinker, a thought often arrives fully formed, but without a script. It's a sudden understanding, a complex emotion, or a spatial map of a solution materializing in their mind. They don't think about the feeling of sadness in words. They simply experience its complete texture directly. Crucially, this isn't an absence of thought. It's thought that simply hasn't been translated into language yet. So the real difference isn't about being verbal versus nonverbal at all. So let's reframe this entire distinction. It's simply about which tool your brain reaches for first, the dictionary or the canvas. And understanding that one difference is the key to real compassion. Now, imagine being an abstract thinker, and someone asks, "A penny for your thoughts?" For you, the thought isn't a penny, it's a whole landscape. You have to quickly translate that complex feeling or image into words. That brief pause isn't emptiness, it's translation time. But in a world that often prizes quick verbal answers, this can create a quiet, persistent worry. Am I less smart because I don't have this voice? Let me be unequivocal about this. The architecture of your mind has no bearing on your intelligence. The ability to visualize a complex system, to feel the shape of a problem, or to synthesize disparate ideas into a single intuitive leap, these are all profound forms of intelligence. They just don't come with a pre-written script. Thinking in concepts or feelings is not a deficit, it's a different processing language. The notion that linguistic intelligence is the only kind that truly matters is a fundamental myth, and it's time we dismantled it completely. Believing one way is superior is like arguing a composer is less brilliant than a poet. Both express profound, complex ideas. They just use different languages to do so. One uses notes, the other uses words. This reveals a deeper question. What is thought before we translate it? This gets to the very heart of it. Thought, in its purest form, is not language. Language is just the filing system. The raw data is the flash of insight, the feeling of a memory, the spatial map of a solution. It's the raw experience. When you think of an apple, do you first see the letters, or do you experience its crispness and color? How your mind prioritizes that process is what gives each cognitive architecture its own unique set of strengths. The inner narrator's architecture often excels at linear planning and precise, detailed articulation. It's a mind built for step-by-step execution. In contrast, the abstract thinker's mind is frequently a master of holistic synthesis, seeing the connections and patterns that others might miss entirely. One is a builder, laying each brick with care. The other is an architect, seeing the entire blueprint in a single glance. Understanding which one you are can reveal a lot about your innate gifts. So, if you're the builder, your gift is precision. Your mind is built for structure, allowing you to construct a logical argument or a project plan with incredible clarity. That makes you a deeply reliable problem solver. If you're the architect, your gift is intuition. You can enter a complex situation and just feel the solution, connecting dots that seem random to others. Your mind is an engine of synthesis. Neither is better. Both architectures are powerful. The point, then, is not to try and force a different cognitive wiring. The true application of this knowledge is simply self-awareness. It's about learning to operate the unique machine you were given with more compassion and skill. So, what does that look like in practice? For those with the inner narrator, the practice is learning to distinguish the helpful guide from the anxious critic, simply noticing its texture without judgment. For the abstract thinker, it's about granting yourself the compassion of a brief pause, the space to translate your inner landscape into words without apology. These are gentle adjustments, not overhauls. But they often reveal a deeper, more painful question we ask ourselves. What if we're still convinced that our fundamental architecture is simply wrong? That feeling is precisely what we need to confront. This internal pressure, this quiet shame that your mind isn't wired the right way, is based on a completely false premise. There is no right way. Judging your cognitive architecture is as fundamentally absurd as a fish berating itself for being unable to climb a tree. It was never designed for that terrain. Your inner world is not a flaw to be fixed. It is simply the territory you were given to explore. Your inner world, whether it's a library of carefully chosen words or a gallery of unspoken feelings, is valid. It is your native language. This means you are not broken for having a constant narrator, nor are you empty for thinking in pure concepts. It was never a bug to be fixed. It's the core feature that makes your consciousness uniquely yours. So, the obsession with whether your mind is built correctly was always a distraction. The only question that has ever truly mattered is this. Now that you understand the unique architecture of your own consciousness, how will you choose to inhabit it? With a little more patience and a little more compassion. Knowing there's no right way to think, which cognitive style, The inner narrator or the abstract thinker? Do you believe our world unfairly rewards? Answer honestly in the comments. But this internal wiring is just the beginning. In our next video, we'll explore why some of us are built to completely disappear just to recharge. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Like if you feel understood, and share this with someone who needs this.